Hello, my name is Simon Miller with the LaRouche organization, coming to you today with your daily video update. Today is Wednesday, August 28th, 2024, and there are a series of developments that we should be discussing. I am coming to you today to exercise my First Amendment rights. I have a right to free speech. I have a right to free press. Each and every citizen of the United States has the right to say what they believe. And I believe, and many others believe, anybody with rational thought about the current strategic situation comes to the impression that we are on the verge of nuclear war. We have a grave danger going on in Kursk against Russia with not a Ukrainian invasion, but a NATO invasion. An invasion that, according to the Russians, was directly facilitated by American forces. You have a grave danger with what's going on in Israel. You have flagrant attacks from the Israeli regime, from the Netanyahu regime, against non-state actors in other countries, preemptive strikes that violate international law and that put us on the verge of a full-blown Middle Eastern conflict between the United States and Iran. So, with the strategic situation being what it is more important than ever that people like me and people like you can exercise our First Amendment rights, but that right is at stake. There are a series of developments ongoing, some that you've heard about, some that you might not have, that explain the attack on freedom of speech within the context of the broader strategic situation. Everyone knows at this point about what happened to Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter, who has been a historic actor with regard to negotiations, nuclear negotiations between the United States and Russia, who has been an outspoken critic of U.S. war policy, who was involved in exposing the lies against the Iraqi regime in the early 2000s. His house has been raided. His passport was revoked after he was ripped off a plane. He has been under consistent attack by the FBI, grilled for 5 hours at his home, and called a foreign agent, called a Russian agent. And you may have heard about Scott Ritter, but there might be some other figures you haven't heard about. For instance, Pavel Durov, the founder and the operator of the popular messaging app Telegram. Telegram uses peer-to-peer encryption, and it's been used to get out information, accurate information about what's going on in Ukraine since the beginning of the special military operation in 2022. So anybody who is trying to get accurate information about what's going on in Ukraine, and even what's going on now with the genocide in Gaza, anybody who's trying to get accurate information has been using Telegram. And because it's encrypted, state actors of the West cannot see what those messages say. They can't find and trace the source of those messages. And because of Telegram's failure to cooperate with intelligence agencies and give up the data of people who are spreading information about what's going on in Israel, about what's going on in Gaza, Pavel Durov has been arrested in France. He claims that he was set up to go and have dinner with President Macron of France, who has denied the election results of the recent French elections. So Pavel Durov, who's the head of a company that has been used to allow people to exercise a freedom of speech and to get out accurate information about the current global conflicts that are being waged by the NATO empire, is arrested in France, directly under the auspices of Macron, who is denying election results that don't favor the Western oligarchy. So you've probably heard of Scott Ritter. You might not have heard of Pavel Durov, but there's another aspect to this. See, on September 3rd, the trial of the Uhuru Three begins. Chairman Omali Yeshitela of the Uhuru movement, which is a black nationalist socialist movement, and two others from that movement have been accused of being Russian agents, of taking money from the Russian government to influence American politics. It's a total hoax. It's just like Scott Ritter being called a foreign agent. It's just like Pavel Durov being called an agent of Russia. It's just like what happens against independent campaigns here in the United States. From the beginning, we've heard, RFK Jr. is a Russian agent. Back in 2016, when Trump was extraordinarily anti-establishment, he was called a Russian agent. And you had this whole Russiagate hoax. And in fact, Diane Sare, the independent candidate for Senate in New York against Gillibrand, and Jose Vega, running as an independent against Richie Torres for Congress in the Bronx, they have both been repeatedly criticized as being Russian agents, Chinese agents. These are foreign agents. We're anti-American. But to me, the most anti-American thing you can do is violate the Constitution. And that's exactly what's happening right now under the current administration. And by administration, I don't just mean the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration. I don't even just mean the Democrat administration. I mean the administration of the entire NATO empire by a small ruling elite, mostly British, European, Anglo-Dutch elite. The same elite who have been anti-American from the very beginning. What was the assassination of Alexander Hamilton at the hands of Aaron Burr? What was the War of 1812? What was the Civil War and the eventual assassination of Abraham Lincoln? These were just the earliest pieces of evidence of an all-out attack on the American Republican Constitution from British agents working within the United States. So to me, the real anti-Americans are not the Uhuru Three. It's not black nationalist socialists who are fighting to try and make this country better, according to how they believe it should be made better. It's not Scott Ritter, who's trying to prevent nuclear war at all costs, who's an expert on the relevant matter. It's certainly not Pavel Durov, who all he did was create an app that allows people to message each other in an encrypted nature. And it's certainly not us. It's certainly not me. It's certainly not you. And it's certainly not Diane Sare or Jose Vega or any of the other independent candidates across this country who are trying to end the war drive before we all end up a giant pile of nuclear rubble. Because the most anti-American thing you can do is violate the Constitution and go abroad searching for monsters. And that's the current status quo. And every single person who fights against it is being prosecuted, is being attacked, is being slandered. And of course, these attacks aren't new. This is what happened to Lyndon LaRouche when he predicted the inevitable economic collapse of the United States as a result of our decision to destroy Bretton Woods and embrace floating point exchange rate. And Lyndon LaRouche has been called an anti-Semite. Lyndon LaRouche has been called a Russian agent, a foreign agent. He's been called a fascist, a conspiracy theorist, a cult leader. But every single time he was right. He predicted every single economic collapse between 1971 and 2008. He predicted every single one of them. And his economic policies, such as the Strategic Defense Initiative, such as the Oasis Plan, specifically, such as the World Land Bridge, have all become massively influential as regarding international and national policy. So an influential figure trying to save America from its own destruction, that's the definition of a patriot. Scott Ritter is a patriot. Diane Sare and Jose Vega are patriots. Pavel Durov, who was born in Russia, who lives in various countries, he's a patriot. Not just a patriot of Russia, not just a patriot of the United States. All of these people, we are patriots of the world. We're world citizens. We're trying to prevent the death of every single man, woman, and child on this planet. And so the attack on our ability to do so, the attack here in the United States on the freedom of speech, guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States, it is an obvious attack on every single person trying to prevent nuclear war, trying to prevent World War III, and trying to bring about something better. So when you look at a situation like Scott Ritter, when you look at a situation like Pavel Durov, when you look at a situation like the Uhuru Three, when you look at a situation like the independent campaigns of Diane Sare and Jose Vega, you must look at all of it within the context of the broader strategic situation. And there are a number of updates we're not getting into here. So if you want to actually understand and explore the frankly scary facts about what's going on in the world today, about the broader strategic situation, the best way to do that is with EIR.news. The Executive Intelligence Review is the best way to keep yourself up to date about the current strategic situation in conjunction with the analysis that is going to bring about a new paradigm. It's not just the bad, it's not just the good, it's the whole strategic picture in one convenient daily briefing. In addition to that, my friend Harley Schlanger will be going live today with his weekly webcast with Helga Zepp-LaRouche. That'll be at 11 a.m. Just a little bit after this video goes up, it'll be live, where you can ask Helga Zepp-LaRouche questions about the current strategic situation. So today's update just serves to say we are not backing down. Myself, personally, Harley Schlanger, independent candidates Diane, Sare, and Jose Vega, we will continue to fight to prevent the end of the world until that end comes or until a new paradigm is built. So join Harley Schlanger and Helga Zepp-LaRouche today at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, just a little bit after this video goes up, for the live webcast. Ask your questions. Join the EIR.news. And in 2 days' time, join the International Peace Coalition, who will be having their 65th meeting. And continue fighting to exercise your freedom of speech. Continue fighting to prevent the end of the world.